So, nah. Your clumsy trophy hunting VTuber is back, and this time we are tackling Persona 3 Reload. Our journey starts once again on the hardest difficulty, which is Merciless. Not that that really matters, because the newer Persona games are known to be quite easy, and that rule applies to Persona Reload as well. But even if the game doesn't give you the most challenging experience, I was still curious how much they have upgraded this game compared to the other versions of Persona 3, and if it is the definitive version to play this game. And I can say it definitely is, but I will go more depth into that as we slowly unlock the trophies for this game. There are a lot of story trophies that can be obtained quite easily, which the first one you get right after you awaken to your persona. And as you progress the story, the next one you should get is for joining the Seize members. Of course, the main protagonist has the power to build multiple personas. Another trophy that you can unlock early on is to fuse some personas, and some of them will be unlocked just from the tutorial, as the game explains the game mechanics that you can switch between party members after you hit the enemy's weaknesses. This is a very useful skill and strategy, I guess, to take down most of the enemies you encounter, and it helps you set up for the all-out attacks that deal massive damage to your enemy. To be fair, I expected this one to be a bit harder to get, because as it says, rare shadows are harder to get, but there are a lot of things you can do to make this easier. There is a fortune teller that increases the spawn rate of these shadows, but even without her help, you can encounter these shadows. Even in Merciless mode, they don't really pose any real threat, but if you take them down, you get a big reward. So it is always a good idea to hunt these shadows down. I would say as I progressed the story, the first boss was probably the one that gave me the most trouble, because early on you don't have access to all the social links and all the abilities that you need, but I came here totally unprepared and I was able to beat this boss down, even though it was under a strict time limit. But before we talk about more trophies, let's talk about Persona's game design just a bit, because I'm sure there are some people that have no idea what social links are or any of this is. To put it simply, in Persona during the day, you partake in normal school life activities where you hang out with friends. As you hang out with friends, you level up these social links. And if you are wondering why do you need these social links, every persona is linked to an arcana, and every character that you interact with is also linked to an arcana from the game. So as you hang out with one of these characters, you level up these arcanas and you'll be able to unlock stronger personas. So during the day, when you are not fighting shadows in Tartarus, this is your main objective. Another thing that I would like to point out, the bosses in this game are worse than in Persona 4 or in Persona 5, because they lack any kind of personality. I mean, it is kinda expected, because you are only fighting shadows, and shadows are like mindless monsters for the most part. There are a few bosses that have personality, but you encounter them much later in the game. And after defeating this boss, I have returned to explore Tartarus further. You unlock more floors of Tartarus after every boss is beaten, and as I explored Tartarus further and fought more shadows, I have used all-out attacks 50 times, which gave me another trophy. Another easy one was unlocked for getting 10 personas, and eventually I got the trophy for getting 50 chests, which are technically briefcases in this game. So you are rewarded for exploring Tartarus, even if it is not the most exciting thing to do, because the floors are always randomly generated, and the dungeon design is clearly not as good as in Persona 5. This is a bit random, but sometimes there's a chance that one of your skills can turn into a different one. I don't really like this mechanic because you can't really tell what skill you're going to get. I think this is definitely better earlier on than in the late game, but you should at least do this once. As I mentioned before, you get better personas if you have better social links. And some personas hold special items. Your personas will level up more if your social link is higher. This is another trophy you should unlock without any issues if you are leveling up your social links. This trophy, I didn't even know you could get this early on, which you get by answering the questions correctly that you get during the tests, but the teachers ask you random questions during the day as well, and you should answer these questions correctly as well because it increases your charm or either your intelligence. I'm not sure how high your intelligence stat needs to be for this trophy, but mine wasn't maxed out and I was able to grab this trophy as well. During Sundays you don't really have a lot of social links to hang out with, so there's a chance that someone that you met will call you and want to hang out with you. I mean, you can do this, but it is not important because you can increase the social link if you have the right persona equipped. But this is another trophy you should get regardless if you're going for the platinum or not. Sometimes you do fight 2 bosses at once. Even that isn't really a big challenge. As you see this time, these bosses can change their weaknesses, but it isn't really a huge deal to take them down. So I defeat another boss quite easily and can progress the story further. I was able to max out one of the social links, I would say rather early on. As you max out the social links, you also unlock special fusions for every arcana. These are personas you should definitely get if you want some strong personas to use, but it is also important to hang out with your party members, because you can unlock special skills or some buffs for them if you do so. My recommendation is that you hang out with them during the night, because you won't lose out on the normal social links that you interact with during the day. For hanging out with your party members, you can actually obtain 2 trophies. One is just for hanging out with them, other one is maxing out their special skills. For this one, you don't need to be as sneaky as Solid Snake. You are able to obtain this trophy by sneaking up on some enemies. You can obtain Twilight fragments from Elizabeth in the overworld or in Tartarus as well, and as you open up chests, you will use up these fragments. Like some of the previous trophies, you need to use 50 fragments to get this trophy. And we have another interesting mechanic for Tartarus as well. Sometimes NPCs get lost and you will need to rescue them. They are not hard to find because Elizabeth tells you a general location where they are, and you get also a little scene once you enter the right floor, gives you a pretty obvious hint that this is the floor where you should look for them. Sometimes cats get lost into Tartarus as well. There's no trophy for rescuing a cat, but you should also get them if you have the chance for some extra rewards. There are special fusions that you can use in the Velvet Room by combining 3 or more personas. These are the most powerful personas, so this is another trophy that you should get without trying. The next boss was beaten quite easily as well. It had one strong attack that dealt more damage on you when you were under charm, but other than that, this boss isn't too hard to take down. In this game, you can tend to your garden during the night and get some extra items. Some give you some extra SP, some give you HP, so it isn't a bad idea to engage with this game mechanic. At the end of battle, there is a chance that you get one of these Arcana shuffles where you can get some extra boosts for the battle or just experience more money and health. Sometimes this also drops personas as well. But for this trophy you will need to select the Arcana cards 10 times to unlock it. Elizabeth gives you some quests as well. These quests are not too deep, but for one of the quests you do need this cat to recover. And finally I get to talk about Monad. These are new locations in Tartarus that have stronger bosses. So this is pretty much the most challenging content the game has to offer. However, I didn't struggle with these bosses at all. I was able to clear out a whole block of Tartarus and these bosses as well. With the normal bosses you need to fight, but they are more challenging than the normal bosses you encounter in Tartarus normally. And once again, they have the same problem as the normal bosses you face in Tartarus. Some of these bosses have some gimmicks, but overall they are not hard to take down. But you should take down all of these bosses because you're obviously going to reward it quite well if you do so. The next boss is this tank boss. This fight is quite interesting because it can split into two shadows. You do need to take them down at the same time, but other than that it isn't really too special. And once again, after I beat this boss, more of Tartarus got unlocked, which unlocked more Monad doors, and after discovering 10 I obtained this trophy. I mentioned tyranny skills before. You do need to perform one with each character, and one of the characters is only around for a short while, so you should use his as soon as possible. All of the tyranny skills are good, and as you see they are also very effective against the next boss to knock it out of this state after it recharges, to deal some massive damage to the whole party. But once again it was taken down without any issues. So there is an option to romance in this game. You can romance all the female characters you can have a social link with, and there isn't really a punishment for you to doing so, so you can pretty much romance all of them. Once you propose your love for the first girl you pick, you can unlock this trophy. I think there is a chance that if you don't do this well, the social link reverses. What that means is that instead of gaining levels, your persona loses levels, but there is a shrine in this game where you can pray and you should be able to make this effect go away, but I haven't encountered this during the game at all. There's a bit grindy one. During the night I was working to max out some of the stats I wanted to have. This isn't the best way to max out your stats, but it worked for me. The main reason you want to do this because you need to earn a certain amount of money by working a day job, which technically it's a night job in this context. There was another trophy I unlocked during the night. There's a special menu you can eat at this kitchen. This gives you points for your academics, and eventually, as I answered the questions correctly during the day, I maxed out the charm stat. This next boss is quite unique because it has a roulette. I remember from the original game that there wasn't a way to interact with this roulette, but I didn't really get to do this when I was playing the game because I just killed the boss before it had any chance to do anything, so do with that information whatever you want. Our next trophy is a bit random because some floors on Tartarus sometimes have a chance to be engulfed by complete darkness. If you take your time on these floors for too long, the Reaper will appear faster. So Tartarus has some interesting mechanics to not make every floor super boring. And eventually I was able to max out all these special stats, academics, courage and charm. It is important to max out all of your stats, not just for this trophy, but for some social links as well. We fight Strega before we face off against the final shadow, who poses once again not any challenge at all. He has some interesting mechanics where he summons a few statues that you have to beat down before you get to attack the main body, but it isn't a big deal. We can take it down relatively quickly. And this is pretty much the last collectible trophy I need to get. There are some fragments all over, either in the school or around the town. And after this I got a few trophies during my streams, so I'm going to show off those. I think this probably has a boss we already beat. I'm guessing. If we know its weakness, we can beat him again. Oh, we don't! Uh-oh, this could be bad. This could be bad. The problem with death, like with the death spell, is you can't really dodge it. It either works or it doesn't. Damn. I guess... Still severe. I like severe. Sure. Oh, there's a chance we knocked him out. Yeah, that's very good. Oh, okay. We got a trophy. We got a trophy for something. That's good. That's for dealing damage, right? Yeah, that's for dealing damage. Okay. It's one way to do it. Merciless, alright. Does the Reaper appear on peaceful? Who knows? Dude. Yes. What? Really?
This'll be good.
Sure. I'm just going to hide behind this mirror. Ow. That sucks. Okay, that's good. There we go. Jeez. Kill the Reaper. What is this? I don't have this. Why are these all like J's? What does J mean? Oh, we got the... What? 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 Whoa. Okay, so that's a huge reward. Insane. It's a... I mean, we don't keep this save anyway, so...
But perhaps that's a part of living too.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, it sure is.
Oh, she gets her persona. Is that the last one I need? I don't know. I don't know if this is the last one I need. Athena. Yes, it is. Oh, cool. So that's 3 trophies for this stream. So deal severe pierce damage to 1/4. I mean, it's okay. I think Orgia mode is definitely better than this. But severe damage is good. I would say that this final shadow you fight at the very end of Monad is a challenge. It can heal itself quite a lot, but I did manage to cheese this fight with Ken's ability that reflects its attacks, and this is pretty much the last boss I took down on Merciless. because I needed to fuse Messiah for one of the trophies. And to get Messiah, you need to fuse Orpheus with Thanatos, as one of you pointed it out during my live streams. So I decided to once again lower the difficulty and kill the Reaper. So I reached level 99 to fuse this persona, and you do need to kill the Reaper to unlock the final date with Elizabeth, which also gives you another trophy. And as the final month approached, this is where I realized I won't be able to max out all the social links in one playthrough. I was close, I was missing only 3 or 4 days to max out Aigis, but it was fine. It is easier to max out the social links in New Game Plus anyway. Nyx is the final boss, and if you are paying attention to the story so far, you have noticed that Persona 3's main theme is the death. So it makes sense that you fight the representation of death itself, who is Nyx. I was overleveled and I didn't fight him on Merciless, so I can't really tell you how difficult this fight is. In the original game it was a lot tougher to beat him because you couldn't control all of your party members, so that also got into the way to take this boss down. And I remember him doing a shield that protected him from any kind of ability. But during this fight Nyx didn't really get to use those abilities. It was a long fight because it needed to go through all the arcanas until it got to death. That final arcana has the biggest health bar. It wasn't a big challenge to take Nyx down. I have to point out that I had a party that's pretty much maxed out, so of course this boss isn't a real challenge. I know some of you are going to mention Elizabeth, but Elizabeth doesn't have a trophy, so I'm not going to focus on her, and she can be taken down quite easily if you have the right setup. After finishing off Nyx's avatar, we fly inside the moon because that's where Nyx's real body is. We seal him away and we can watch the ending of the game, so we get a trophy for defeating Nyx and 1 trophy for experiencing the sad ending of the game, where the protagonist passes away in Aigis' hands after he fulfilled his promise to meet up with them one final time. I did use a guide after I finished the game to have a general idea when to hang out with the right social link, but I'm pretty sure even if you're not using a guide, you should be able to do this, because you don't need to focus on your other stats. There is a summer break, so you should leave some social links that are outside of school to hang out with those social links. And near the end of the game, there's also a few weeks of winter breaks where you're not able to hang out with anyone from the school. This is up to you. I don't really enjoy using a guide for my first playthrough because I like to discover stuff on my own, but keep in mind, if you are replaying the game, even if you skip anything, it takes about 20 hours to do so. Well, we get to talk about episode Aigis, or what it was called in the original game, the answer. I was actually excited to play this because I never got myself to play it in the original game because I didn't really enjoy that you don't have social links. Even if it is a short extra episode, that was the main thing that didn't appeal to me, and I would say this still reflects even in the remake. Despite all the new upgrades that the remake has, like the synergy skills, the dungeon design is randomly generated, which in my opinion holds back Persona 3 in general. I know in Persona 4 the dungeon design isn't a whole lot better, but at least the dungeons are shorter. They have their own personality that ties them to the kidnapped characters that were thrown into the TV. So let's talk about the story a bit, because the DLC only has story trophies. The game definitely has an interesting idea where one day keeps repeating over and over again, and you pretty much need to break the cycle. This represents that the main protagonists are unable to move on because the main character has died. A new party member joins as well. Her name is Maris, and this gets revealed a lot later, but Maris is the shadow of Aigis. Pretty much as you progress each dungeon, you unlock a memory for each character. Well, technically for a character, you don't really get a huge backstory in the main game. So the first one we see is Ken's, the next one is Akihiko's. He just gets recruited by Mitsuru. I did start the journey on the hardest difficulty, but this is where I also changed the difficulty to make this whole grind somewhat more fun. Junpei's memory is not too interesting, it just shows that met Akamaru before everyone else. It does talk about his dad's drinking problem, so that's something, I guess. The next one is definitely the most interesting. It shows Mitsuru awakening to her persona to protect her dad during the dark hour. Yukari gets a letter from her dad, which her main motive is to find out why he died. The last memory you unlock is from Aigis. If you pay close attention, you can see that her shadow literally emerges from her shadow. And eventually Maris does explain that she is a shadow, and shadows and personas are pretty much the same thing, which is the main reason she can also summon a persona. And after Aigis's memory, a shadow emerges that resembles the main character, and this shadow also can summon the other personas. After this, the party, which I think is really stupid, they cannot agree where to use the key. There are two doors, and they pretty much decide to fight for the final key. And this is probably the most frustrating part of this whole playthrough, because these, at least Akihiko and Ken, are very difficult to beat even on the normal difficulty. This whole playthrough is pretty much the difficulty you would want in the normal Persona playthrough, but as I said, it is kind of frustrating to play because it's very repetitive. And after you beat the Seize members, the only obstacle that's standing in your way is the final boss, who is interesting to fight. I'm not going to say it's not. It has a few gimmicks that it can change its weaknesses and it can hit you with some strong attacks. Aigis and Maris was on level 99 because I didn't feel like fighting the Seize members fair, so I just killed the Reaper on the safety difficulty. I know this is a bit cheesy, but you know, it worked for me, and it's definitely a well-designed boss, and I had fun fighting it, and it looks very cool as well. And I would say the ending is also very good, that Aigis locks the dorm and all of the Seize members go on their journey and become a better person, even if best friend is no longer around. And there is one more challenge that I didn't bother with. Joker is a secret boss, and if you somehow made it this far in this video, I will consider making a more laid-back video for Joker specifically, because I would like to beat him on the highest difficulty. I just rushed through episode Aigis to experience the story. I wouldn't say the story wasn't too special, but it had its good moments. I'm not going to say it didn't. On the screen you should see some other videos that I think would be interesting for you if you want to hear this VTuber yap about some other trophies as well.